Hello and welcome to Masterclass number 21. This is our first Masterclass for 2020, and the topic for today is all about positive ripples of permaculture, and in this context, Nairobi. My name is Morag from the Permaculture Education Institute, and tonight I'm joined by Dr. Silke Bollmohr from Nairobi, Kenya. Now, I would like to start off also by welcoming you all, and thank you so much for being here. There's about 1,500 people who have joined this masterclass tonight from all around the world. And I'd also like to say a special hello to all of the students and participants of the Permaculture Educators Program. Like all of the masterclasses, this masterclass is sponsored by the Permaculture Education Institute. And actually, Silke is a recent graduate of the Permaculture Educators Program too. So this is a combined online permaculture design certificate course and a permaculture teacher certificate course, also with some eco-business modules to support you to make permaculture your livelihood and way of life. So Silke studied environmental science, and that's what her PhD was in. She was focusing a lot on the use of pesticides in agriculture, and so started turning around to focus on farming, regenerative farming, organic farming, and now more recently permaculture. And so this is a story about how she's been able, through establishing her own garden and establishing and transforming school gardens at a children's home, an orphanage, that the work she's doing is actually rippling out into a community and into villages, and it's really an amazing story of hope and positivity. And I find it absolutely amazing every time I talk to people who are really engaged with permaculture and active in permaculture in their neighbourhood and their community, how there are always these kinds of stories of the positive ripple effect. So I hope you enjoy this presentation, this walkabout, really, I should say, as much as I did when I was talking with Silke while we were recording this. So earlier this week, Silke took me through her own garden, and then the next day we went, she did, I was online in Australia here following her around, into the school garden at the children's home. So the two of them are really great examples of how to apply permaculture ideas, and she shares a lot of the different strategies and ideas and plants and principles through that. And a really fascinating part of this masterclass is when she goes and she introduces us to the farmers and the gardeners who were working with her, and hearing their stories about how it's making a difference in their life. So if you're watching this live, you can ask questions of Silke. She'll be online with us all the way through, and you can ask her questions. So if you're not online, what I'm going to do is summarize those questions and put them down below. And if you do have other questions or comments, please do put them in the chat section below, and that would be a really great way that we can also get back and answer your questions too. So if you have an idea of something you'd like us to focus on as a topic to dive into in one of these monthly sessions, then please do leave a comment below too. I'd love to hear from you. So, okay, without any more about that, I'm going to launch into Silke's tour, and we'll get to see her garden and the children's home garden.
Okay, so you can see the little permaculture kitchen garden here in my backyard here in Nairobi. We are in Nairobi in Kenya. And you can see there are a couple of beds with very different vegetables, herbs, trees, fruit trees. And you can also see probably that there is like a big concrete pathway. So when I arrived here 3.5 years ago, this whole garden was just solid concrete soil. So there was nothing growing apart from a couple of trees. And this pathway was obviously in here. So the way I designed the garden when I started the little kitchen permaculture project here, I was thinking, how can I slow down the water? Because as you can see, if you come up here, there's a little slope, and I wanted that water to be in the garden as long as possible. So that's why you see all the different pathways here, a little bit skew. Here you can see a little keyhole bed. So imagine there is going to be a rainfall, and the water is flushing down here. The water is flowing first into these little pathways on the left-hand side, to the right-hand side, and so on. The other thing is you have very much different heights here. Big trees, small trees, shrubs, herbs, strawberries, ground cover. In the beginning, I just started with the normal vegetables. Like I love salad, I love strawberries, and I love herbs. So, but then I realized this is getting quite hot in the summer, because here in Nairobi we have 2 rainy seasons and 2 dry seasons. So during the dry season, it can get very, very hot and very, very dry. So I started to grow, for example, these banana trees like 1.5 years ago, to actually create a little bit of shade. And you can see there's a lot of different microclimates here in the garden. You see the sun over there, then you see a little bit of shade on the right-hand side. There is a big diversity of plants. So I don't have one bed just with one plant. I mixed many different things together. So I use, for example, here the strawberry as a ground cover, and also oregano, lots of different herbs which are perfect for ground cover. So most of the time when people come in here, they say, oh my gosh, it looks very chaotic. But as soon as I explain to them that there is actually a system behind it, people understand. Well, when I started the garden, I rather started with bulby plants, because the soil was so concrete. So we planted firstly a lot of peas, a lot of beans, and a lot of these type of radish, beetroot, onions, carrots, to loosening up the soil, or to keep it loose. Because we also have quite a bit of a problem. You can see probably here in the soil that it is quite clayey. So as soon as we don't cover the soil is getting hardened and waterlogged. So we really need to make sure to grow a lot of bulby plants, and to keep the soil covered, either with cover crops or with mulch, either brown mulch or living mulch. Here you see a typical bed. We just started with cucumber. And we also planted a lot of seeds on the edge to actually stabilize the edges. Because when it rains, it really rains like heavily here. And we need to stabilize the edges, otherwise we're losing the soil. Another strategy we use is we actually using or producing our own fertilizers. So we have different fertilizers. Now you probably wonder what this is. This is not a bath I'm taking in the garden. I would love to do that. But this is actually my little worm farm. So let's open this. And here you can see, this is most of my kitchen waste, flowers, some green leaves, some green stuff out of the garden. We just chuck in here. And now you see old paper rolls, you see lots of different brown things. And then here, hopefully we find some of the worms. Here we got some. So it's not smelly at all. It tastes very nice. Here's one. Now this is the one fertilizer we use. The second one is the green tea. Here we've got, I can just wash my hands in here quickly. Here we've got comfrey leaves, we've got pumpkin leaves. We just started it today. So this is not smelly yet. This is just fresh leaves in water. And we keep this for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, it looks like this. So it's quite blackish water, nice and smelly, lots of bacteria in, and we use this as a fertilizer for nitrogen. So if we know a plant needs a lot of nitrogen, we apply this green tea. Another one we're using is chicken tea. Now this is chicken manure filled up with water. This is the old one, already ready to use. We also leave it for 2 to 3 weeks. And this is the fresh one, just started today. So we've got our own chicken, and we use obviously the chicken manure from our chicken to produce this fertilizer. So if we have a plant like a tomato which needs, which is just about to flower and just about to, produce fruits, we actually apply the chicken manure, because the chicken manure then gives the necessary nutrients for fruiting and for flowering. So these are basically our fertilizers, and we just watering or feeding the soil like once to twice a week with these different types. So, sorry, I forgot to actually tell you what's coming out of this worm bath. You can see here at the bottom. We've got the opening here at the bath tap, and here you can see that the worm juice is just dropping out by itself, and the only thing we need to collect them and keep them until we actually apply it to the plants. And the last fertilizer, very important and probably most importantly, is the compost. And we've got different compost piles. Here's one. So these are strategies which are working quite well. Making sure the water stays in the soil with mulching, cover crop, living or brown mulch, and using their own fertilizers, or producing their own fertilizers. You probably wonder what this plant is. This is the Mexican marigold, and because I'm working in the field of trying to avoid pesticides, chemical pesticides, which is one of the main things also in organic farming and as part of permaculture, we're actually producing our own natural pesticides, if you want to call them. If we find a little problem of aphids or whiteflies, we're using this plant. We are just cooking the leaves and the flowers as they are right now in water, and then use the water and spray it against these little insects, which might turn into a problem if they reproduce very quickly. And we're growing a lot of chilies. We also use garlic for making our own natural pesticide. So these are basically the three ones. We also got a neem tree in the garden. I'll show you a little bit later.
With your pesticides, yes, have you noticed that because of the diversity of your garden, that you have less of a pest problem than just the standard row gardens? How have you found the difference there? Have you needed to use a lot of even the natural pesticides?
There are a couple of plants which always attract aphids and whiteflies. This is the kale, and that's why I just avoid to grow kale. I don't grow kale at all anymore. Yeah. And when I've got Kenyans in my courses, they don't understand, because kale is actually the plant every Kenyan wants to grow, but it really attracts a lot of pests. I don't really want to say pest. It attracts a lot of unfavorable insects, let's put it like that. Through constantly or regularly looking into the garden, walking through the garden, having my coffee in the garden, seeing, okay, my pumpkin now develops like a little fungal disease, I just pick the leaves and get rid of it immediately. So, which only happens, when it's quite moist and during the rainy season. In terms of insects, I hardly have any insects at all. Like, I hardly have any unfavorable insects. I've got lots of pollinators. I've got lots of natural predators in here through the flowers and through the diversity. but the aphids, whiteflies, all these type of things, the leaf-eating beetles, are very rare. And this is mainly because of the diversity. Also lots of herbs in between, and these are just repellent mostly for the different unfavorable ones. But then also due to acting immediately. So if I see a little problem of aphids developing somewhere, I immediately apply this Mexican marigolds, and they're gone because they hate the smell.
Well, how do the people who come into your garden, because I know you do workshops there and you talk to a lot of people about the way that you garden, what's their response to that? Are they interested in then learning more and copying what it is that you're doing there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, most of the time, most of the courses I give here in the garden are like weekend courses, 2-day courses, where they just get a little introduction into permaculture and into like urban farming, producing their own food. And most of the people actually coming to the courses are people from other countries, because here in Nairobi we have the UN, we have lots of embassies, so we've got lots of experts, and they used to buy and eat organic food, which is not always as available as in Europe, the US, or Australia, or wherever around the world. So they decided then to grow their own food. Some of them have already general knowledge, but some of them are completely blank in terms of gardens. So they don't even know, what different plants are there and what they can actually do about it. Now, when they come into the gardening course, they're all very excited. And the very nice thing is that some of the experts also taking their gardeners with. And they can actually try all these things out they learned at the experts garden without having a loss of crops or anything. And then take that knowledge back to their farms, which is most of the time in Western Kenya. Yeah, and also the experts, we have a little WhatsApp group where all participants actually sharing their successes, their failures, their learning processes. And it's amazing how all these gardens are actually developing. And many of them are interested in learning more about permaculture and actually taking, the whole 2-week permaculture design courses.
What other plants have you got there? What are the unusual or interesting plants have you got there that you really love having in your garden for different reasons?
Really, my favorite plant is basically the pigeon pea. Although I don't use it for my own consumption, the pigeon pea is nitrogen fixing, so I always plant it next to salads or to any plants, green leaf plants, which need a lot of nitrogen. And I always start the beds with the pigeon pea. But then you can see it has these beautiful flowers, and it actually attracts a lot of pollinators. So it's really very nice. And I need pollinators. I mean, every gardener needs pollinators, but I especially need pollinators because I've got the pawpaw tree, which is 100% dependent on pollination. So if I don't have any pollinators here, I don't have pawpaws, I don't have papaya. So this one is a female plant, and up there you can see this is a male plant. And you need a little pollinator to transfer the male to the female. And the pigeon peas are perfect. So I always plant pigeon peas right next to the papaya, for example. And another thing about the pigeon pea is that it's perennial. So it's not, it stays longer than a year, and it grows into a little shrub. It creates little microclimates, a little bit of shade. So it's a very, very nice plant. So I really love that one.
I love it. One of the main things that I use it for too is for doing chop and drop to grow my own mulch. So you've talked about bananas, but pigeon pea for me is also one of those plants that I really love for that. That and the grass, comfrey, banana, all those things really, really help a lot. Yeah.
Yes. Let's go to the other side. So my other favorite plant or like group of plants are the green leaf vegetables. And the very nice thing is that Kenyans love them as well. So one can actually share all the practices and learning processes one goes through when one is doing permaculture. So this is the sweet potato. And most of the people actually just eat the potato itself. But I really love the leaves.
They're great.
They are so
I do
nice.
too. And the pumpkin leaves as well.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So you can see here's the sweet potato. There at the back, you can see the big pumpkin leaves. So these are definitely one of my favorites. So I either, I just put them for 5 seconds into the pan, stir fried, very, very nice. The other one is the porridge. I also love the taste of the leaves of the porridge. See here.
How do you eat your porridge, Lee? Just raw or cooked?
The same. Cooked. Raw, they're a bit stingy because they have little spikes on their leaves, the same as the pumpkin. So just I put everything together, sweet potato, pumpkin, and porridge leaves, and just fry them for just 5 to 10 seconds. And then they're very gently soft and very nice. So here you can see the pumpkin growing like crazy after this big rain. And no fungal disease at all, although they are quite close to each other. So normally I actually loosen them out a little bit, but this one is now, covering very nicely the soil. But I want to show you my last favorite one, or maybe two favorite ones. This is the neem tree, by the way. This one I just planted 4 months ago.
Wow, it's huge.
Growing like crazy. Yes.
I wish mine would go that big. I've had mine in for maybe 10 years and it's not even half that size.
Yeah, but we're very lucky here. We have very favorite climates here in Nairobi. Yeah. So the neem tree is doing very well. So the neem tree is actually used as a toothbrush as well. So local people actually just twig one of the branches off and then shred it out at the end a little bit and use it as a toothbrush. And the leaves you can cook and use for a natural pesticide. But I actually want to show you the second last favorable one, which is the Amarant. So I try to really focus on indigenous plants here. So this is the beautiful Amarant. Here you can see the seed pods and also the leaves. And Kenyans love to eat the leaves, but they don't know about the nutritious value of the seeds. So they actually throw away the seeds. Oh, yes, no. And it is. And it's full of manganese, phosphorus, it's high nutrients. So I always collect them, as you can see here. And you can see already the little seeds coming out. So I just smash them a little bit and then you can see all these nice seeds over there. And I just use them in my muesli or in smoothies or whatever. Yeah. And then I also always pick the leaves for my stir fry. So, and the Amarant actually grows like a weed. It just comes up everywhere. One actually just needs to control it because otherwise the whole garden will be just full of Amarant.
So you just leave it where you want it and pull out the rest and mulch the rest.
Yes. Yeah. And make sure to take the seeds so that they don't spread too much.
Yep.
Then we got this one over here, tree tomato.
Otherwise known as tamarillo. The tamarillo is a really great one to incorporate into a veggie garden. I actually use it in my garden to create a mid-layer of shade, particularly for the summertime when things get really struggling.
Yes.
That with a pigeon pea is really great because they're fast-growing, easy to get going, start while your other longer-term things are happening. Yeah, great.
Yes.
And they're so delicious. And they're very easy to propagate. You just take like one of the branches off and you plant that and you'll get another one.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I need to try. I need to try that. So we've got avocado up there. Here, as a ground cover, we've got the strawberries. But because everything is more or less covered, even during the dry season, we hardly need to water. So we water maybe twice a week, and that's it. So we don't really use a lot of water. And I mean, luckily, right now the rainy season is much longer than usually. So obviously, all the gardeners and farmers are very happy about that.
So any other things
That's right.
that you'd like to tell us about your garden? Because I know tomorrow you're going to take us into a different garden, a garden at
Yes.
a school, and which I'm really looking forward to seeing as well. So before we close up on your garden tour, is there any other final things, like any key lessons that you've learned in applying this? Any sort of mistakes that you made? Thought, oh, well, that I'll try differently next time if I do things, or anything that you feel like has been sort of your major joy of working in a garden like this?
Yeah, I think the mistakes. Let's first go to the mistakes. I read, first of all, it was very hot in this garden because there were hardly any trees. Then I started planting the trees, and now it's too shady. So they are basically, I underestimated the speed of growth of these plants.
Yeah.
So the banana trees, they seem to take over. As you can see, I mean, I planted all of these like a year ago. So
Wow.
and they're all big, So actually, that's why I created this, the other garden on the other side, which has more sun. This is very, very shady. And I can't grow a lot of things here anymore, especially not tomatoes. You don't see any tomatoes, or even the salad, I feel it's quite problematic. The herbs are fine. The beans are fine. You can see beans here. And this year at the back was more or less my sort of staple food type of gardening, where I put pumpkin and potatoes and sweet potatoes and all these type of things. And you can see now it's afternoon, but this is the only time when the sun actually reaches these beds. So this was basically a little mistake to put too many trees in.
Yeah.
So always be careful not to create too much shade.
One really useful thing that I find too is in some places you can actually source dwarf varieties of trees. So you get the diversity, you get the next layer, but they don't become absolutely massive.
And then the other challenge I had, especially because I always created new beds during the gardening courses, is that I had so much soil to cover, and I didn't really have enough mulch material. Right. So I was really running out of mulch material. And then I had the idea to actually ask the neighbors for mulch material. So grass cuttings, old banana leaves, whatever old brown leaves they got. And now we go every 2 weeks, we're going to go around and collect all the plant material from the neighbors, which is now awesome, because otherwise I would have never known my neighbors, because somehow strange in this area, you don't go and say hello to each other as a neighbor. It's very much an isolated way of living. But now that I actually, collecting their waste, in their words, because it's not a waste, it's really nice. So they see it as waste, and they probably think, oh my gosh, this lady is completely crazy. What is she doing? But
wonderful. It's a fantastic story. I love that story. And there's people here who even share their food scraps because someone doesn't have a compost system and someone does. And there's actually these apps that people have now that connect people with these sorts of things.
Yeah,
seeing how you're doing that there, that's great. And I think that we need to think beyond we need to think beyond the boundaries, our own fence lines, and see ourselves as part of a bigger neighbourhood or a region, and really think for our resources and that we can access all over. And I love that it's that's great.
Yeah, definitely. So I actually registered the first open compost pile in Kenya with I think it's makingsoil.org, where you just register your compost on the map, and then people, neighbors, whoever in a surrounding of 1, 2, 3, 4 kilometers can come around and can actually leave your kitchen waste. Yeah, and what is actually doing very well here in the garden are my herbs. I really love herbs because I use these herbs in my Ayurvedic classes. I'm doing, I'm an Ayurvedic wellness advisor, and I'm a yoga teacher. So every yoga class we have tea after yoga made out of these fresh herbs out of the gardens. And then you've got here the basil. I also very often make basil tea, and this is more like a bushy basil. It's not this Italian basil. Italian basil doesn't do well in Nairobi, but this one is amazing. It just takes on everything: heat, dryness, wetness, everything. It just grows like crazy.
Is there a seed-saving network that you can access where you are to be able to get some good quality seed?
There is one close to Nakuru. That's where their office is based. But it's not, I mean, you have to get there, you have to go there to get the seeds. But there's so many people doing permaculture in Nairobi already that one just exchange seeds. Someone is going up, getting some seeds, and we just share with each other.
Do you have a Nairobi Permaculture Club where you get together?
Yeah, not really a club, but based on the participants of the courses, we've got like a network where we're meeting and sharing seeds on a regular basis. But then, all the other permaculturists, we all know each other. We are one community.
Yeah.
So
whenever
I need something.
So what you're saying is then, so the people who come to the courses that you run then become part of the network. So the network is growing because you're running these type of courses. You're connecting people through these courses. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's right.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, now, you see the oregano, you see here we've got parsley. The nasturtium is also a very nice herb I use. And then I dry them, and then I just either use it for tea. Here you can see mixed tea, which is like lemongrass and lemon verbene. Then you got lemon verbene and sage tea, mint tea. So I either use it fresh or the crushed dried ones for the tea. And then I've got also the different herbs for cooking. And then I make the herb salt, which is very delicious, very nice. So all these type of things are really doing very well. And I just personally love herbs. So.
Oh, that's great. Now, I wanted to ask you a question about your herb drying. How do you dry it? Do you just put it out in the sun, or do you have a dryer that you use?
No, I actually want to build a solar dryer, but at the moment I just do it not even in the sun. Well, if it's wet season, then I use the sun. But if it's a dry season, I just put it in a storeroom where it's a little bit of wind to make the drying as less harsh for the herb as possible, and then to keep all the taste and the smell in it, and then I just dry it, which takes like a week or 1.5 weeks, and then I crush it and put it in glasses.
Fantastic.
Yeah. We always collect the leaves in the morning, because in the morning the scent is the strongest. So that's the only thing one probably needs to know about herb drying and storing.
Fantastic.
We can also ask my gardener what he actually took out of these, what he learned here in the last 3.5 years, and what he applied already on his farm in Western Kenya.
Hi.
So this is Juma, and Juma works as a gardener here, and he participated in the first gardening permaculture course, and since then he is basically running the courses with me together. And and I think he just wants to share what he what he's already applying at his farm, where he's coming from, what he's applying there, the most important thing, what he basically learned and works out on his farm.
Yes. I'm Sostino Wanjala Juma from western part of Kenya. In my home county is called Pungoma. I'm working in our small farm here. And in fact, I'm very happy to have worked or to have working with her, because Before I met Mama, I didn't know anything about permaculture, anything to do with organic farming. But as per now, as I'm talking now, I have gained a lot about organic farming because I have learned so many things. Just like maybe preparing compost manure, about things like mulching, about things like intercropping, and things like preparing kitchen manure, chicken manure, and some green manure. Because at first I didn't know that. What I knew it was just like maybe putting the seeds in the soil, and after maybe putting the seeds in the soil, just water and apply artificial fertilizer. But when I met Mama, I learned and I came to discover that actually artificial fertilizer is not important. So I went into organic matters and everything we are doing here, we are just farming naturally. And I also came to learn that when we use mulching, as time goes by, it decomposes, and it turns itself into organic matters. So I realized that the mulching is also important because when we mulch, we store water in the soil, and we are also providing organic fertilizer because when it decomposes, it turns into organic fertilizer. And because of this, at home, I have helped so many people, especially my wife, because we used at home, we used to buy vegetables all the time, going to the market all the time. I had no ideas on how we can just keep on our farming in our own garden. But now Mama is enjoying because we are saving a lot. She's not using her money because she's getting everything in her farm. Before I met Mama, I used to run to the hospital almost just even minor stomach upset, I rush to the hospital. Even just this normal colds, I rush to the hospital. But because of her and because of learning more about the herbs in our garden, right now I don't visit the chemist, I don't visit the pharmacy because we take almost everything from our garden. So that's a very big advantage. And even at home, now my wife is enjoying, now my kids are enjoying it because she's not running with them now and then to the pharmacy, buying these paracetamols, painkillers, because we normally, when it is just normal cold, we just keep the like lemon plants from our garden and so on. So it is very important. And because of that, in my home, up country, so many people, especially the friends of my wife, the friends of my mama, they normally come and ask how she's doing, and she gave them a secret that all this is happening because of my husband. Where he's working, she's working, doing a lot of permaculture, a lot of organic farming. And, they form something like a group, and they are doing fine because whenever I go there, they invite me there, I go there and give them some tips on how to do permaculture. And now they are enjoying because everybody now they are harvesting vegetables, they are selling, they are eating, we are just doing everything in a natural way, and we are enjoying. And I hope as time goes by, maybe, but I think if this continues working the way it is working, then I'm sure it's going to spread all over the county. In my home county, we only have 1 acre fund. And 1 acre fund, people in my county, they just use a lot of fertilizer, they use a lot of chemicals, and they also prevent only in one farm, in one plant, that's maize and specifically beans. But when I learned permaculture from Mama, I came to realize that actually permaculture or agriculture is not about planting one plant. So it is from my area, they are very happy because they are doing what we call intercropping. Especially when you visit my farm or you visit most of the farms, they're at home, those of the people I have met with, you will find that we have got the nightshades are there, these indigenous vegetables, indigenous plants. Like Amarant, you get them there. I'm sure one of these fine days, when I go, I will just make a very big impact of maybe organizing and moving from one village to another and make sure that the people, they do permaculture. And my encouragement is that maybe people, not only here in Kenya or not only here in Nairobi with Mama here, but all over the country, all over the world, I encourage that people should learn about permaculture because it is very important. I'm happy about the permaculture. And it's like I normally dream it about it all the time. Even if in my sleep, I just dream permaculture. So I'm happy about permaculture.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, all the best. All the best with your permaculture. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mama,
Thank you.
Thanks, Juma. So
wonderful. That's great. And I mean, I think that whole thing around shifting the 1 acre farm approach to a permaculture approach, I mean, it really does seem, every time I speak to someone from that part of the world, it just seems like that's such a big part of the problem.
But it's really, really horrible. I just spoke to a lady. She did some research in Western Kenya again. And first of all, they're very powerful because they can reach through their network. They can reach thousands of farmers. And then, they're actually moving farmers into debt. And they're changing the whole society within the villages because, they're picking just 2 or 3 people who are then responsible for getting in the money for the 1 acre farm, for the borrowed sack of seeds, and so on and so on.
Yeah, so they've changed this. You're saying changing the societal structure in a way because different people are being put in charge.
Yeah, different to actually collect the money, and if women can't pay back, then they say, look, then you have to sell your livestock. And beforehand, they were like, neighbors and friends, and all of a sudden they're sitting in this role of collecting the money. But I mean, and on top of that, it's definitely not following any sustainable agricultural practices. It's just a bag of seeds, it's artificial fertilizer, and it's a pesticide.
Thank you so much for this afternoon in your lovely garden. That was wonderful.
Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited about coming out with you to your garden tomorrow because this is sort of more of and something that you do as an outreach, isn't it? That you go out to a school and do permaculture there.
Yeah, so today we are at a children's home and a school. So it's a children's home and a school where approximately 150 children, orphans, living here permanently. And I think another 150 actually coming from the neighboring slum, using the school, allowed to, participate in the school. The school is really awesome. They have so many different projects for the kids, like for example, art and music and gardening. So one of the extramural activities is environmental education, actually. And I was started to get involved here maybe 9 months, a year ago. I'm going to show you the farm just now, but I just want to talk a little bit about the school beforehand. So I was getting involved in this farm or in the extramural activities a year ago, where this whole farm was still based on conventional farming. And very important to know is that this farm is actually feeding all the kids and teachers and sometimes parents as well. So all the kids, the orphans living here permanently, getting their food out of the garden. So the idea is not to buy anything additional for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. So the food is getting directly into the kitchen. The kitchen obviously is part of the school, so it's not going to be delivered. So everything is being prepared here. And the idea was to actually change the farm into a more sustainable approach, because kids are eating the vegetables, and beforehand Not many pesticides actually, but some were used. And there was also a problem in terms of soil health and soil fertility. There were quite a bit of pest infestations of whiteflies and aphids and also a lot of fungal diseases. And we tried to sort of get a grip on it. And at the same time, I was starting, to really apply these permaculture principles, which I tried out in my own garden, which you saw already, which was quite perfect because they all worked very nicely, not all of them, but most of them worked very nicely on this farm here as well. So we are also in Nairobi at the sort of outer skirts, close to Loresho. Probably no one actually knows this area in Nairobi, but for the Nairobians watching or listening, it's close to Loresho and it's close to a slum area. So at the moment, they being involved after school. Every Friday afternoon, I work with them for 2 hours in the garden, doing all sorts of fun activities, but then also planting and teaching them on the permaculture principles and ethics and so on. But we also did a training for the teachers on this whole approach of changing the farm and how one can actually, sorry, I had to wave to one of the teachers, and how to actually...
behind you too. I'm waving to the camera.
Yes, how to actually include the different subjects into the garden. So we had a training with the teachers, an 8-day training course. Teachers, but also parents from the slum areas who were interested were allowed to take part in it. So it was a training which was offered for free for all of the people who were interested, and the parents were very, very interested, and I'm not sure if they implemented it, but they all said at the end of the course, wow, we learned so much, and now, the whole mindset has changed, and we want to include this in our little shamba at home. I mean, most of the time they don't have a lot of space there, but at least in this small space. But I'm definitely gonna go in the next couple of weeks and see if they did something good, what their challenges are, because one actually needs to accompany them as well. But the idea is also, as soon as we set up the permaculture garden, to use this school as a training site for other schools. So that there's an exchange between kids, but also exchange between parents and teachers to learn from each other, so that they actually taking on this approach and teaching others about it.
Fantastic. Oh, I look forward to seeing it. Shall we go for a wander into the garden? Well, you wander, I watch you wander.
Sure. Hello. You want to have a look? Say hello.
Hello.
Okay, so we're approaching the entrance of the farm. And now you can see the whole size of the farm. So even the maize, you see the slum area at the back, and you see the maize, the big maize field.
Yep.
It's still very important for them to grow a lot of maize. So this is more like a little type of monoculture. And then here you can see the whole farm starting here on the top, going down, right down to the banana trees. Here you can see our whole organic fertilizer station, where we do the same as I explained in my garden, like the green tea, the chicken manure, and the worm juice. So because we have quite a bit of kitchen waste, because we have lots of kids eating, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 worm bath taps. So these are all the worm bath taps. So we're creating a lot of worm juice. Yeah.
How do the kids like working with the worm farms, or are they a bit kind of grossed out by it?
They're very grossed out still. Only the brave ones can actually touch them, but they think they're snakes.
So, it takes a while, doesn't it?
No, I'm pretty sure that after a couple of months they love them and they play with them as well.
Yeah.
So you can see the worm juice dropping out here into the buckets, and we collect it every day, put it into big storage containers. Now here we've got actually drip irrigation. Yeah. So yeah, this is Emmanuel. Emmanuel is the farm manager here.
Hi.
Here is the compost heap, one of the compost heaps. You're on camera.
Hi.
Here we started a little herb spiral, like the sage, the rosemary, oregano, mint. And the kids actually love it to smell the different leaves. And the teachers always come when they get sick and take some leaves. We try to intersperse all the different fields, and you will see all the big size of the farm later on with flowers. Before we started here changing the farm, there were no flowers at all. So here you can see some sunflowers, but they just stopped flowering right now. So we're going to collect the seeds. Now here we're trying a couple of seeds we actually brought from Germany. So these are all organic seeds, non-hybrid seeds, because we try to change the whole system to non-hybrid seeds, because it should be a sustainable farming project where we don't want to buy seeds all the time.
So from what I understand is that it is actually quite challenging to get good quality seeds, that mostly the seeds are hybrid seeds and they're sold through companies, but actually exchanging seed or saving seeds and trading seeds locally is really not that easy to do. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Most of the seeds are hybrid seeds you buy from corporates and from agrovets, and then you can get some local seeds, but it's actually not allowed to sell them. You know, that's basically the law in Kenya. You can exchange, that's still allowed, but not buying any local seeds from your from any sort of neighbor or something like that. And the other problem is that most of the seeds are actually coated with pesticides already. Yeah. So if you want to do organic farming, it's very difficult if you use those seeds. You know, they are very often like a very pink, brightish color. And these are basically pesticides where they're already soaked in, and we don't want that in our soil. This is one of the kales or cabbages, actually kale cabbage, what I mentioned yesterday from Ethiopia, which is actually doing very well. So we've got a couple of different lettuces, and this is a bit of a challenge to introduce different vegetables and different crops here, because the kids are not used to eat salads, lettuce, and they don't really like it. Whenever I'm with them on the farm, they tend to love it, but it's not on the usual menu for lunch or for dinner. And that's why also the kitchen chef actually took part in the permaculture course we gave to actually, also create some awareness for the chef to introduce these type of vegetables for just a higher variety of food and higher variety of nutrients.
Great.
This is our little basil field, and we're just gonna transplant tomatoes in here. So we have basil tomato, like a nice intercropping. And the idea is, maybe let's talk about this now also, is not just to use the food for the kids, but also for the kids to be able to sell it at the various organic farmers markets. So I also work with a German school, because my son goes to the German school, and they have like an organic farmers market once every month. And we're now trying to get a link between these two schools so that the kids can actually go there and sell together with the kids from the German school, maybe even, because I'm also doing a permaculture thing there to sell, for example, these organic herbs. Like basil is very hard to get in Kenya, and this is like as good as the Italian basil. And I think it will go very well for the kids to sell this. Even seedlings, preparing seedlings for an extra income, and also like maybe using it as a subject economy economics for school, how to make money out of these plants, and not just herbs. I mean, the idea is also to, even if they don't eat the lettuce, maybe selling the lettuce at organic farmers markets. They also
But that's a great idea,
So, but
having
all
the
these-
links between the two schools and
yes,
doing some micro enterprise
exactly.
through it. I mean, that's a really valuable
Yes.
part of the program.
Yeah. Now, this is the first field we changed into a more permaculture style or permaculture way. So we used edges, edge growing plants like here, the lemongrass. We used lots of flowers, borage. Most of the things have been harvested already, but we created a lot of diversity in the beds. And you probably also realize that the beds have a different shape. They're not just straight. They're like sort of curved to catch the water coming from the upper areas. We use the sweet potato here on purpose to catch the water before it just, or to slow down the water. We also put these banana trees in to create a little bit of shade because it is very hot here in summer. So this is more the approach we now try to follow on each different field.
What do people say about that when they see the changes? How the people who are used to the other way, what do they think about this new way that you're introducing?
Do you see any difference in the management of the farm?
I think concerning the management of the farm, in terms of using the organic fertilizers, I've used in different fields. Comparing with the last one, we have increased our production in the farm, specifically on vegetable. Then the issue of pests, we have pests, but we have just reduced it to a certain level. Then,
Right.
yes.
And have you noticed that the water is staying in the field more, that you don't need to water it as much? And because of collecting the water?
And then that's the issue of controlling the soil erosion in the farm.
Mm-hmm.
Making that beds, we reduce the running off or the surface runoff of rainwater. Then they have the ground seepage of water. When we block the water, and then it grow, it move down the ground. Then we have the ground seepage of the water, and then the plant can utilize the water, the rainwater, that the running rainwater in the bed.
Mm-hmm. Great. Do the children also
doing
work in the farm?
We have different clubs in the school. We have the 4K club who are working in the farm, so that they can participate every Wednesday at around 2:45.
When you have some of the children out with you, what type of activities are you doing with them?
Well, we just do different ones. Like the plan is also that like 4 kids have one bed for themselves, so they need to take care of that. They can decide what they would like to grow. If they love herbs or if they love flowers, then they just grow that. If they would like to get tomatoes, they can decide what they grow. Then we also do fun activities. So we do all sorts of games, hide and seek, catching each other, being an insect. One is the predatory insect, one is the pest, and we play catching games. And then we have different topics every week. So the one week is nutrition, the other week is insects, flowers, herbs. So it's always around one topic. We're just gonna doing work with the kids, and it's always separated in like sort of 30 minutes working actually on the farm in the field, helping with weeding or replanting banana trees or anything like that. And then we do some information around the different topics, for example, insects. So they run around catching insects, and we try to see if they're beneficial or not beneficial. And then at the end, we do like some sort of fun activities where they can just run around and have fun.
Yeah, that sounds great. So did you design this particular set of classes for this context, or is there something that inspired you, a program from Germany maybe? And it sounds absolutely brilliant. I think it's fantastic. Every school needs something like this.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I think just my experience when I was in Germany, I did these courses already with bigger kids. It's a bit of a challenge to actually keep them all busy and happy. But what I learned from Germany was basically, to always include fun for the kids as well.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they don't want to do it anymore. So let's quickly move a little bit further. This is my mom reading a book.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
This is like another sort of type of hill or berm we did for the water to actually get caught and slowed down, because behind this berm, the slope is quite getting more and more steep. So we used sweet potato again, and we interspersed with a lot of flowers, with Amarant, with nasturtium, and they are just basically self-seeding. So we don't need to do anything about them. They just, drop their seeds and reseed and being replanted again. So it's quite easy to manage. But in general, as you can see, there is still a lot of work to do. So we started with the first field now, and in the next 6 months, our aim is to change basically everything into a permaculture way. So yeah, we still need to work on the mulching, on diversifying, but the approach is we're just going to go field by field. Agriculture or working on a farm is not seen as like a number one priority for kids and for the youth, and that's the problem. I mean, we don't have enough youth to come and follow the farmers and starting their own farm, because they don't see it as being a good job. They rather want to study and want to doing, I don't know, work in an office, being a doctor or things like that. So it's definitely this case, and even with the small kids, and definitely from the parents' side as well. And I also worked in South Africa for 15 years, and there it was even worse. It was actually not allowed by law.
So you were in South Africa before you moved to Kenya, because you're environmental scientist, is that right? Is that your background?
Yes. Yeah, I started working on the issue of pesticides and impact on biodiversity in South Africa, and then I just realized it's such a it just didn't really make me happy to go to the farmers and tell them it's bad what they're doing, because and I actually wanted to find solutions rather than telling them it's bad what you're doing, because every farmer was saying, okay, it's bad, but what else can I do? So and that's why I moved more into farming and started learning, like sort of 8 years ago. I started learning farming myself, and what's important, soil health, fertility, etc. And I started working on permaculture projects in South Africa already, where I realized that with schools. And then I moved back to Berlin for 3 years, where permaculture is also very big in terms of urban farming. And after 3 years, I came here to Kenya. So, yeah.
Yeah, great. And Emmanuel, so is permaculture something that's new to you?
No, because I also did a course in permaculture as a module in my careers. I'm also a graduate from one of the colleges in Kenya.
Did you?
So agriculture is my passion.
Wow, fantastic.
And they had permaculture as a subject there?
Yes, we had as a module.
Oh.
Where was that? Which college was that? That's fascinating.
That's Barak Agricultural College, is located in Nakuru.
So what do you think about permaculture? Do you think that it has something of real value, not only to children's homes, gardens like this, but also to farmers' fields beyond and in your neighbourhood, in your community?
Yeah, it's. I think when we implement permaculture if you can mobilize, you can have that chance to mobilize every people to understand the importance of permaculture. I think Kenyan will move in a certain level that we are going to eradicate some diseases that are being caused by this synthetic fertilizer and the pesticide that we are using in Kenya. That have the problem with the newborn kids and the environment.
So what do you think are the things that need to happen to help to mobilise permaculture more? What do you find are the challenges, and what do you see are the opportunities?
What I can say is that when we are attending our course of permaculture with the Madam Silke, we have some farmers that we mobilize, but we know that farmers, most of the time that they are spending here, they have some issues to do that they can earn a living. So the problem was that they want to attend that course, but at the end of the day, they want something that they can go and feed their family. So that was the problem.
And how can we overcome this problem?
So if we can allocate some funds to, if we have a training, we can give them something. When they attend our courses for like 1 week, we can give them something. So because that time they was to spend elsewhere to work, they can get their food for their kids. We can give them something so that they can feed their kids, and they can benefit from our land.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's a really good suggestion.
I think also the follow-ups, right?
Yes.
Because even if you train a person once, that doesn't mean that the person can actually implement everything at once.
Another alternative is we can mobilize those farmers as a group. We can make as a group. Then we can make a day in a week we attend to that field. We do something, all of us. Then we can see the progress of that field. As we progress in our school, we also make like 1 day or 30 minutes. We can attend to some farmers block, and then we can mobilize them.
So learning together in the field and helping each other.
Yes.
That's fantastic. Do you think it would help to have more demonstration centres, demonstration farms, like places where farmers can come to see the permaculture in action?
If we set up a centre, it would be beneficial to those farmers.
Yeah, I think that's also the idea of this farm here. As I said in the beginning, to set this up as a demonstration camp for all people being able to come and have a look how it works.
Great.
And for the school to get some extra income, maybe, hosting courses here.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's really great. Thank you so much for showing us around your farm. It's been absolutely wonderful to see and to see the transition. And I think that's a very real thing, isn't it? That we can't just go from one system to another. It is actually about a matter of scale and transitioning at the rate that you can manage, and also to be able to see side by side what some of the difference are. And that actually helps to convince people too, that they can see the productivity in one space and the productivity in another, the pest issues in one and the pest issues in another. And having those systems side by side for a while can really help to make a difference in people's understanding, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So thank you so much. I know you've got lots of things to get off and do today. Thank you. It was lovely to meet you, Manuel. Thank you for joining in and contributing your expertise to this session as well.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
So thanks for joining us for this masterclass. Now you might have noticed along the way there was a mention of the Ethos Foundation. That's our registered permaculture charity, and every dollar that is donated to the Ethos Foundation we send directly to local communities, women's groups, school groups, local farmers groups, to help create permaculture education opportunities for as many people as possible. So the website again for that is ethosfoundation.org.au. Now I'm also putting up the website to be able to follow up more about Silke's work, and that is hamana.org. And if the idea of actually focusing your work and your life in permaculture really appeals to you, I encourage you to look into doing the Permaculture Educators Program, because we have a lot of opportunities this year for you to come and work with us in places like Kenya and Zanzibar and Indonesia and other parts of the world. And you can be involved in purposeful and positive permaculture projects that really ripple out. So thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Morag from the Permaculture Education Institute.